Meanwhile, major rifts emerging today between Attorney General Bill Barr and FBI Director Christopher Wray over whether the government spied on the president's 2016 campaign. This all started last month when the AG suggested the feds had done just that. And last week, he stood by those controversial comments.
I think spying is a good English word that, in fact, doesn't have synonyms because it is the broadest word incorporating really all forms of covert intelligence collection.
But today on Capitol Hill, the FBI director seemed to avoid the S word.
Well, that's not the term I would use.
Thank you. So I would say that's a no to that question.
Well, I mean, look, there are lots of people have different colloquial phrases. I believe that the FBI is engaged in investigative activity, and part of investigative activity includes surveillance activity of different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, sometimes surveillance activity can be much worse than spying. Wray was there. He was asked, rather, whether he believes the FBI and the agents had engaged in illegal surveillance. And they did. Watch.
Do you have any evidence that any illegal surveillance into the campaigns or individuals associated with the campaigns by the FBI occurred?
I don't think I personally have any evidence of that sort.
Well, it's just business as usual then at the FBI. As you know, the president has jumped all over the spying allegations, claiming he was the target of all sorts of dirty tricks. But is surveillance really the same as spying, or is this just a big distraction? Tonight's panel is here to discuss from Independent Women's Forum, where she serves as senior policy analyst. She's also an attorney. Inez Stepman is here, along with a host of the Part of the Problem podcast. He's also a comedian. Dave Smith is back. And we've got former Ohio State Senator, she's a proud Buckeye, Capri Cafaro, back in action. All right, welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Yay. Hey. So you think spying is too much of an incendiary word. Why?
Well, I think that because people think that spying is, this cloak and dagger kind of thing where, it's not authorized. It's not necessarily something that you would.
No, spying can be authorized.
Well, if it's counterintelligence, right? So I think that you see the differentiation between what the FBI director was trying to say and kind of tripping all over himself doing it at the same time, and what the Attorney General said. I mean, these are two sides of the same coin, but I think what's happening is that in polite society, so to speak, counterintelligence sounds better than spying. This all goes down to, at the end of the day, I think where sort of the rubber meets the road here is it spying if the origins of the counterintelligence efforts were obtained in some way nefariously or illegally, aka the FISA stuff?
Or if they were if the warrant application was so opaque that the judge who agreed to it really had no idea what the basis for the surveillance was. It just goes to show Christopher Wray isn't putting Democrats' fears to rest by saying, well, it's not really spying, because he wants to keep as much power as he possibly can under the purview of his agency. And that should worry Democrats running for president, because he works for the Trump Department of Justice. And if all those tools are fair game, guess what? Bernie Sanders took his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. He's made very positive comments about the former Soviet Union. Joe Biden had a big hand in foreign policy during the Obama campaign, and he's talked to many Russian operatives. So given that criteria, I think this Department of Justice would be totally justified using counter surveillance or whatever the hell you want to call it on some of those candidates.
You're missing some steps there. I mean, you have to get an ex-British spy to make up a dossier full of lies, and then you could spy on all of them.
And then supply a campaign worker with liquor, a volunteer campaign worker with liquor, plant information in his brain, and then try and extract that in order to launch an investigation.
This is such a weird. It reminds me of when the neocons would, say it's enhanced interrogation, it's not torture. It's like, but we're all talking about the same thing happening. Yes. So call it whatever you want to call it. What the story is here is that Obama's spy agencies, spied on. That's the term I'll use. Spied on an opposition party presidential candidate, and then he was tarred in the public as a Russian puppet traitor for 2 years. And everything, the reason for the spying, has been proven wrong. Carter Page was not a Russian spy. None of this came out.
Carter Page wasn't indicted.
None of these people were indicted. No one was indicted for conspiring with the Russians. So wouldn't the obvious next step be, what happened here? What reason did you have to start spying on me? And it's not a coincidence.
Every person running for president should ask, can this happen to me?
And it's not a coincidence that as soon as the Attorney General said, that's what we need to focus on now, what happened here, that all of a sudden they're talking about him being held in contempt of Congress, and he's now facing all of this heat from the media and the Democrats, because I think a lot of these people don't want to find out what actually happened.
And that boils down to the IG report that's coming out, and that could have some very big implications and some bad conclusions.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. I think this is an advance to try to discredit Barr. And are we really having this conversation about whether wiretaps and informants are spying? I mean, I don't think the average American really is going to go along with the Democrats on this argument. I'm not really sure why they're making it. I just think it sounds ridiculous to the average person. And I'm frankly shocked, actually, that Democrats and the left are now seem to be arguing for a completely independent law enforcement agency that has no actual oversight from elected officials.
That's what President Obama campaigned against.